Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection, the place where we gather to connect every week. Whether you're here in the building with us at Spirit and Truth Sanctuary or joining us online, everyone is welcome. We will begin today with our prayer of surrender and then on to our devotion, which is called Finding Stillness in the Chaos. But first, our prayer. Spirit of Truth, carry me where you will. Bring to me what you will. Take from me what you will. Awaken in me what you will. The Christ man is around me. The Christ mind is in me. The Christ power flows through me. And the Christ mystery exists as me. I believe it. I perceive it. And now I receive it. I am surrendered. Amen. And so it is. All right, our affirmation. Today, I will not give my attention to any chaos that presents itself in my life, but I will learn to shift my focus to the stillness I can always find within myself instead. Okay, so before we go any further, I want to stop and tie this in to last week's teaching when we talked about the various entities we give our power away to via our time and attention that are actually thieves in the temple of our consciousness. This affirmation and this devotion today is along those same lines. We have to learn not to give away our peace and our stillness to the chaos that sometimes presents itself in our lives. And I'm going to give away the fact now that I'm the one that wrote today's devotion because the next part is a quote from Dr. Kim Duramo, who all of you know I love to quote. So Dr. Kim says, chaos never needs your attention. It's an indication that stillness needs your attention. It then goes on to say, and I'm going back to the text of the devotion now, far too often when we find ourselves in the midst of confusion or disorder, we think we must shift all of our focus and energy onto the chaos because we've got to put that fire out before we can do anything else. Now, time out. A little later on in my teaching today, I'm going to talk about the concept of first the natural, then the spiritual. But this is one situation where we don't want to follow that formula or that example. It usually works, but not all the time. Because in the natural physical realm, yes, if there's a fire, you pretty much need to drop everything you're doing right that minute and put all your attention and focus on putting it out before doing anything else. But short of a physical fire, on an emotional level, when you're experiencing chaos, putting all of your attention on the chaos is not the most effective way to deal with it, mainly because putting all your energy on it just makes it bigger. I was listening to a stand-up comedian the other day. It was a woman. Her name is Lynn Koplitz, and she's hilarious. She's about my age, and a lot of her material has to do with what women of a certain age go through when the change of life hits them. So she was talking about the difference between men and women, and she said men are more like hurricanes when they get mad or upset. Sometimes it's bad, but you usually have a lot of advance warning, so you can prepare. And when it hits, and then it just blows by, usually stays headed in the same general direction, and the forecasters see it coming, and so you know what you're dealing with. If it's going to pick up speed or get bigger, it usually takes a lot of time to do that. But women's emotions, she said, are more like tornadoes. She says sometimes they come up suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere. And as she was describing it, she was doing this with her hand. And she said a tornado is the only kind of weather event that can go down the road to its sister's house and get her caught up in the cyclone. And then the two of them make one big tornado. It's twice as big because they joined forces. And then she made a joke about literally going to her sister's house one day when she was upset at her husband. And instead of calming her down, her sister just got her more worked up. It's like, remember that time he did this? And remember that time he did this? So she said it a lot funnier. But the point is, when you're in chaos, the last thing you want to do is add more chaos on top of it and make it bigger. And that's what happens a lot of the time when you focus all of your energy and attention on something. You just make it bigger. All right, so back to the text. We feel that in order to restore calm and stillness, we must take some action to resolve the chaos. But actually, the exact opposite is true. When you come across a chaotic situation and you're the person looking at it from the outside, what is the first thing you say to the people involved? Calm down. Why do we do this? It tells us in the next paragraph. Instinctively, you know that putting more focus on the hysteria at that point only gives it more fuel and creates more chaos. So it's just like exposing a fire to oxygen. Okay, it just explodes. So let's not give our emotional fires any more oxygen, okay? Don't feed the fears. I know a while back I did a whole teaching on that. Don't feed your fear. This is what you do instead. You try to get the person to shift their focus away from whatever the disorder is and toward stillness or calmness. Now, did you ever do that with your kids when they were little? If you were going to have to rip a Band-Aid off or they were going to at the doctor's getting a shot, you kind of try to get their attention on something else and then just do it real quick before they even knew what was going on. Okay, same concept. So all that, however, is if someone else is in the midst of an emotional episode. But what we all need to learn to do is to tell ourselves that. Last paragraph, although it's much easier to tell someone else to do this than to do it yourself, it is a skill worth cultivating. Shifting your focus away from the chaos is the way you come back to your stillness. Okay, so that's the way you restore calm. Here's our ending prayer. Source of calm, help me to remember that when I find myself in turbulent circumstances, I can always come back to stillness by focusing on the Christ within who leads me beside still waters. Amen.